Hello and welcome, and thanks for joining us for this Snorkl 101 webinar here, Tuesday, August 26th. I know it's the beginning of the school year, so especially appreciate you taking a little bit of time right now to dive more into Snorkl, and super grateful to have you here. We know that even though people are busy right now, we also want to just start putting out resources for folks who are looking to learn more about how they can bring Snorkl to their classrooms, bring Snorkl to their schools or to the districts. So really excited to have you with us. If you are joining us live, please feel free to drop a note in the chat. Let us know where you are joining from. So great to have you. And if you are watching afterwards asynchronously, also grateful that you are tuning in. Hello from Morocco. Great to have you here. All right. In today's call, we have 30 minutes here to just go through the basics of Snorkl. So this is Snorkl 101. So we're going to talk a little bit about creating activities in Snorkl, both that student experience and that teacher experience in Snorkl, how people are using Snorkl in their classrooms and their schools, and supporting more students to share their thinking and get really immediate feedback. So excited to dive in with you. In just a moment here, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to spend a bunch of time actually in the platform. But before we do, I want to just talk a little bit about why Snorkl. My personal background is I was a high school math teacher for 10 years, and we built Snorkl really out of this desire to capture student thinking in richer ways and give students really immediate feedback, celebrating what's going right in their thinking and asking them questions about where they can improve. And so Snorkl is often used as a formative assessment tool, allowing teachers to get better insights into how their students are thinking or problem solving or interpreting a text, and for students to get really immediate personalized feedback on their thinking and learning. Snorkl serves all students, all age ranges from K through 12, and you can use Snorkl in math class, science class, social studies, ELA, Spanish. It's really versatile. So excited to get into the platform and get to share some of that with you here this evening. With that, I'm going to share my screen. And I did a webinar last night and I forgot to push this button to make that screen larger. So now it's larger and you can see it hopefully there on your side, and just walk you through some of the basics of the Snorkl platform here. And I'm going to start off especially by honing in on that student experience and what Snorkl offers for students. And so when you first sign in as a teacher, it'll bring you to that teacher home screen. It will look something like this. Anyone can sign up for a free teacher account. It's at snorkl.app, snorkl.app, and you can access it from any device, iPad, web browser, Chromebook. Once you are into the platform, on the left-hand side, there's this big try a sample activity button. And this is where I love to encourage folks to try out Snorkl for the first time. And so if you've never tried Snorkl before, I want to invite you to try that here, either during or maybe immediately after tonight's webinar, but actually invite you to try out what is that experience like as a student in Snorkl. So if you come try a sample activity, there are a variety of pre-created activities for math, science, ELA, social studies. There's a Spanish one in here. There's some that are just for fun, like spoon or fork, or peanut butter and jelly, just asking some fun questions. But when you open up that activity, you'll see the option to start a response. And this is what it looks like for students. So students see a question from their teacher and have different tools to respond. They can draw, highlight, type out their thinking. And then what makes Snorkl really powerful and really unique is we get students to record and explain their thinking. And so when students are ready, they press this purple record button and they talk. And Snorkl captures their voice and it captures what they're doing on their screen. And so we can get far richer student explanations and thinking, and we hear students talking and using that academic vocabulary and all the really good things that we want when a classroom comes alive and students are really deeply engaged. So let's look at this question here. It is asking us which, if any, of the gases listed in the data table could be the same. Use information from the table and cite evidence to explain and justify your answer. Well, I'm looking at these and I'm seeing that both gas A and gas D are both flammable. And both gas A and gas D both have the same density here of, 89 thousandths gallons per, or grams per liter. That would make sense for density. And so that's my answer. Is I'm going to say gas A and gas D must be the same. All right. Even as I was doing that, I had to access a little bit more metacognition. I had to think about my response and check myself. And we think that's a beautiful thing. And we see that happening oftentimes with students too. One of the things that we ask teachers all the time is, what's most valuable for you in Snorkl? Is it the students explaining, or is it the AI feedback? And it's really split. We get people saying both, because we think, and this makes a lot of sense, we think that both are really valuable. So once students record, they press that submit button, the AI will analyze their response. And again, it analyzes both their verbal and their visual response. So if they put something on their whiteboard, we'll also analyze that. And then we give students really personalized, immediate feedback, and we celebrate what they're doing right. And we ask them some questions about some ways that they could improve. Students immediately get a score on how strong their response is, and teachers can customize what the AI is looking for in their student responses. And you can actually align this really closely with your curriculum. So here on the right-hand side is my feedback. You can see it took averages about 15 to 20 seconds to pop up. And here is what I got. I got it correct. My answer was A and D were the same. My explanation got a 3 out of 4. And then I get some really specific praise on my explanation here, right? So great job identifying that gas A and gas D share the same flammability and density. Second piece of feedback, your conclusion that gas A and gas D could be the same is correct. However, can you explain why having different volumes doesn't mean that they're different gases? Oh, so there's some other information here in this data table that I didn't address at all in my explanation. And my explanation could actually be improved if I did explicitly address that. And then some additional praise here. So again, we're actually raising the bar for our students and what we can expect from them, right? We're saying it takes more than just being able to get an answer. We actually want our students to be positioned to explain their thinking. And we know that this is good for students' long-term retention. We know that this is good for deep engagement. We know that this speaks to a lot of the goals we have around getting our students to speak more in class and talk more in class and use that academic language. So there's a ton of rich benefit here, and they get that immediate feedback. One of the questions we get a lot is, can I actually have my students do this in class? Can I actually have a group of 30 students recording live in class? And the answer is yes. And that's in fact how most teachers are using Snorkl. They're using it in their classrooms and having all of their students record and respond at once. We use an AI tool to capture the student's voice and follow the student's voice through the length of the recording. So it does a quite good job of isolating and following a single student's voice through their response. Some teachers will supplement this by having students spread out around the room. Sometimes people will use headphones. Definitely, you're welcome to experiment with those things. But we also, I know I've been in many classrooms where students are just at their desk, they're just talking in a normal speaking voice, and Snorkl does a really good job of picking that up and giving them appropriate feedback. So that is the student experience in Snorkl. Students get that feedback. They can listen to that feedback read aloud to them. They can actually get that feedback in over 40 different languages. And I'll show you some of the language features and settings here in a moment, but it creates a lot of access, especially for students who are developing their English language or need that practice. And then students can use that feedback right away to respond again. And if you walk into any classroom where students are snorkeling, you will see students are using that feedback right away to respond again. And I think there's two reasons for this. The first is that they're getting that really immediate feedback. But the second, I think, is that their voice is attached to it. And so students often feel a lot of ownership over their work and really want to do well. That is that student experience. And so I'm going to jump back here and click that purple button up at the top and jump over into the teacher experience. If you're joining and watching live, feel free to drop in the chat here if there's any questions that are coming up, or if there's anything that you just saw that was new or surprising to you or different. Love to invite you to follow along, participate here in the chat. I'm going to do my best to go back and forth between checking in on the chat, and then I know that we've got some teammates here who are also helping to answer questions. If for whatever reason the live stream is choppy, which is also being live streamed on YouTube, and so you can check it out there on our YouTube channel as well. All right, so we just walked through the student experience. What teachers see in Snorkl is they get to see all their student responses across the class immediately scored by AI, along with feedback and analysis. And so here's what a teacher's class might look like. You'll see here all my student responses. On each of them in the bottom right-hand corner, there's an excellent, a strong, a not yet, and a fair, and those correspond to the different point values in Snorkl. And Snorkl activities are scored on a 0 through 4 scale. And again, you can customize what the AI is looking for on that 0 through 4 scale for any activity. And you can even upload activities from your own curriculum right into Snorkl. I'm going to show that at the end here today, but I want to make sure I go through this teacher experience here on looking at activities as well. If I click on an individual student response, I can look at the score and the feedback that they got. Teachers can leave additional comments to students, and teachers can actually even override or change students' scores on responses. You can quickly move between different students in your class to review them if you'd like. And then we also know that as a teacher, it's important not only to know students' scores, but actually to understand what's happening in their thinking. And so the Insights tab here up at the top will show you trends from across the class. So it will show you your top exemplars from across the class. It will also show you some of the trending errors or mistakes that, in this case, some of our friends are making as they work through the activities. I've seen some really powerful things being done by teachers who are leveraging this particular feature in order to have some class discussions, especially around some of those exemplars, and talk about what makes this a 4, what makes this really strong and something that we can learn from, and letting students do some digesting of that can really set them up for success to do that on their own work. As students come back to Snorkl over time, on the class view, this is my class with all my activities, there's also a progress view. And so there's this like a gradebook view where you can see students' scores. You can sort this in a variety of different ways, and you can also download it as a CSV, but it gives you some really rich data as to how your students are performing, and you can track their progress and mastery. All right, so that's the basics of both the student experience and the teacher experience. I'm just going to check in on the chat here. I know some of my teammates are also helping to follow along. Oh, great. Good to have you here. Steve, great to have you. Arlissa, Carla, Sarah, great to have you. So glad that you're with us here. All right. When you are first getting started in Snorkl, if you've tried it already, you've experienced that as a student, the next place I invite you to go to is the library, which you can find here or at the top, the Snorkl library. Our library has thousands of pre-created activities that are standards aligned, and you can search them by subject or by topic. If you jump into any specific content area or grade level, you can look at some of the pre-created content in there. And any of these activities you can try yourself as a student, or you can assign to your student directly from the library. You also have the option to add this to your own personal library, which will allow you to further edit that activity and customize it. We're constantly adding new materials to the Snorkl library, and so this is a growing resource. Covers K through 12, math, science, social studies, ELA. We've been adding world language content and social studies content here over the summer. If you are familiar with EduProtocols, there's EduProtocols in here. There's IM math content in here, some specific STAR practice if you're in Texas, and there's a lot more coming. Also in the library is the general section, and underneath the general section is the getting started activities. And this is a place where I love to point teachers to, especially at the beginning of the year, because there's a lot of really great activities in here to use at the beginning of the school year. So if you go to that library, go to general, getting started, you'll find in here some really fun classic questions like, if you're gonna make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, explain the steps, explain that to someone who's never done it before, right? And these are just activities that can allow you to introduce Snorkl to your students for the first time, or introduce Snorkl to other adults or teachers for the first time, that get them talking and get them explaining and allow them to experience Snorkl, which is a fun entry place into the platform. So again, you can find those in the general section under getting started. There's a lot of fun ones in here. You can create your own as well. Speaking of creating your own, when you are ready for it, I want to make sure that you know how you can create your own Snorkel activities and how you can use Snorkel with your own curriculum or your own resources that you have at your disposal. So from the Snorkel homepage here, there's this third button across the top, create an activity, allows you to create a Snorkel activity. And here you're going to see there's a few different options for how you set this up. The number one option here right at the top is the whiteboard recording. This is the classic Snorkel experience where students record their voice and their screen on their whiteboard and talk through their thinking and learning. You have a couple of different options below that. One is to do whiteboard only, which just scores students' visual response. There's no audio. There's audio only, which just scores their audio response, no visual. And then there's writing activities. And those are the most different of all because those are ones that actually don't take place on a whiteboard, but just allow students to write a response. I'm going to come back and show writing at the end, but I want to make sure I walk through the steps here of just creating a basic Snorkel activity. So I'm going to call this one, I'm going to call it a physics example. And I'm going to click on whiteboard recording. And then we just want to add our content to that whiteboard. So I'm going to click on that whiteboard and I can type out my question here on the whiteboard, or I can upload an image, or I can copy and paste content onto that whiteboard. So if I use my screenshot tool, I can copy it, paste it, and I can put whatever objects I want in here. So this is a physics question that I want to put on here for my students. You can resize it, you can add additional text or instructions, but once you've put that content on the whiteboard, you click Done Editing, and you can scroll down here, and the AI is going to do the work. So scroll down to where it says AI feedback settings, generate from question, and the AI is going to analyze what you just put on the whiteboard, and it's going to set up an answer key for you. And here, we think this is part of the magic of Snorkel, is this is not just student answers going into a black box of AI. This is student answers going into something that's been teacher reviewed, and you can make sure it really aligns with your goals for your students. So check this out. So it just analyzed that picture I just put on the whiteboard of that high school physics question. It identified it as a science question for high school. It gives a description, like these are the words that were on that image on that whiteboard, and then it actually describes that image as well. Down below that, it gives a step-by-step solution and answer key for how it would solve that to find the kinetic energy of that block. And you'll notice there's an edit button here. And so if you click edit, you can make adjustments to any of this. Let's say this is actually for my middle schoolers. Let's say I really want students to explain why, let's see, mechanical energy is conserved. And I can add additional criteria here for what students should include in their explanation or answer. Once that is set up and matches your goals, you can hit confirm, and then you can assign that to your students or try it out yourself. If you've never used Snorkel before, you're not going to have any classes here, but there's a create class button in the bottom left. And so I can go ahead and create a new class and assign that to my class. I can also choose multiple classes at once here and assign it to multiple classes. I'm going to hit assign. When you assign a Snorkel activity, it generates a share link or a share code that you can then go ahead and pass on to your students so that they can access the activity. And I'm going to click go to activity. It will bring us to that activity dashboard where you see students' responses. All right. So from here, I can access that share link again in the top right-hand corner. I can also try it out as a student once more. Again, this allows you to test it, make sure that the AI feedback is aligned with what you are wanting students to get feedback on, and we can try explaining and showing our thinking and getting that feedback. It's not going to give me a very good score here. It's not going to be impressed by my response. All right, we'll skip that. So those are the basics of creating a Snorkel activity. You can take your own content, copy and paste it onto the whiteboard, set it up and share it with your students. Anything that you create is then saved in the My Library section of Snorkel. So I got there by going to the top tab and going to My Library, and there's that physics question we just made. Let's say I want to share that with my colleagues who also teach physics. I can go in here and click share with teachers, and I can grab that link and I can send it to my colleagues down the hall or across the school or the district so that they can also use that same Snorkl activity with their students. If you are on a premium account, you also have the option here to add to your school and district library. And so you can share this as a resource so that others in your school or your district can access it as part of their school and district library. All right, I want to make sure that we jump back now to a couple of other functions and features in Snorkl. I showed a math example, I showed a science example. I want to make sure that I show a couple of other examples for other subject areas as well. And then I want to come back to that writing tool right at the end. So I'm going to go back to the Snorkl library, and I want to show you how you can actually use Snorkl for reading fluency. So in the Snorkl library here, there are some pre-created reading fluency activities. You'll notice that these are set up as audio-only activities, so students aren't going to be able to respond on the whiteboard. It's just to record their voice. And so what this looks like for students is they get to see that question or that prompt. You can, just like anything else, you can create your own reading fluency activities in Snorkl. But when students are ready, they press that record button, and then they can start reading. The sun is up. The rat can see the boost. He is in the boost. Okay, so I struggled a little bit with that one word, but now Snorkl will analyze my response to give me feedback on my reading. So we're actually using different AI tools here under the hood, depending on the type of activity that this is. On world language activities or on reading fluency activities, we do analysis of the student's audio to give feedback on pronunciation and intonation and things like that. So you'll notice here on the right-hand side, I get some praise on what's going well and the words I'm saying correctly. Then it says, I noticed you said a different word twice in the story. Can you try reading the word bus again? Remember, it rhymes with us. Students can also have this read aloud to them.
I noticed you said a different word twice in the story. Can you try reading the word bus again? Remember, it rhymes with us.
So students can hear that. And then when students are ready, they can respond again. And so we have a lot of teachers who will use Snorkl, especially with reading fluency with younger learners, also in world language classes, because it provides a really rich opportunity for oral language practice. And we've got a collection of some pre-created world language activities if you're looking for some inspiration there. You can do other things in ELA, such as analyzing a text or a passage, having students pull out the main idea and justify their thinking. There are a lot of really rich possibilities with Snorkl, but what we allow for is getting beyond just sharing that answer and allowing students to share and justify their thinking and reasoning, which we think is so powerful, and we know is so powerful. And with that, I want to transition a little bit into that last feature that I was showing you a minute ago, which is the writing tool. The writing tool we just released over the summer. And the reason we released is we actually saw a lot of teachers asking their students to use the whiteboard recordings to type responses. We thought this was creative. We love the idea. We get the idea, like you want your students to get instant feedback on their writing. Snorkl is sort of unique and one of the few platforms out there right now that's this really sort of self-contained student-facing platforms where you can track all those scores and track that mastery, and gives you as the teacher a ton of control over how it's scored and what kind of feedback students are getting. And so we built the writing tool to better support that use case. Our heart and soul is still around this whiteboard recording piece, but we want to create some options here. And so the writing tool will allow you to actually ask your students a prompt instead of on the whiteboard, but just in a written form. You can add sources. And then very similar to those whiteboard experiences that we set up before, you can have the AI analyze it and set up an answer key for you. And you can adjust the criteria there to match your goals. You can use the writing tool to have students do a short exit ticket. Maybe you're only expecting them to answer with 2-3 sentences, or you can use the writing tool to do a longer essay. It's a lot of versatility. Let me show you a writing activity that's already completed. And I'm going to show it from the student side here. All right, so this is what it looks like. as a student, and I have a previous written response here, but I open it up on the left-hand side. I see my teacher's prompt, and I see a few articles or sources my teacher has added. You can add images in as well. And here, if you're, you can do CERs as a science teacher. You can do DBQs as a social studies teacher. You can, again, make this into doing something really simple, like answering an exit ticket type of question, or have students do longer form writing in here. The other day, I actually saw a teacher wanting students to work on grammar. And so what she did was she put in a prompt, and the prompt below it had a piece of writing with some grammar mistakes, and she asked students to type their corrected version of the text over there in the rich text editor. So there's a lot of really interesting ways to explore and leverage this. When students type their response, they can press that end and review button. The AI will analyze it to give them feedback and a score, very similar to that whiteboard experience, but it's aligned to those teachers' criteria. And then students, of course, can use that feedback again right away to make improvements on their writing. One thing that's, I think, really special about the writing experience is the AI has knowledge of what students submitted before and the revisions they made, which means that it can actually give specific praise about the revisions students are making and how they're using and applying that feedback. You'll notice here, it says, great job adding that period at the end of the sentence, because last time I didn't have the period at the end of the sentence. So it's picking up on it. It's actually giving me personalized feedback and celebrating what I'm doing right. It doesn't mean I automatically got a 4. In fact, my response is still quite weak, but it's going to celebrate the things that I'm doing right as I'm revising my work, and then ask me questions again to try to push me and how I can improve, right? You can use that right away to respond again. Every time that a student responds, Snorkl holds on to that attempt. And so you'll see here on the teacher dashboard, you can see that Monique has tried this activity 9 times. She's made 9 revisions to her work, or 8 revisions off of her original work. And I can jump into her first response or her last response or anything in between. So you have a lot of visibility here. You'll also notice that Jeff's work is all tagged in red, and in the top right-hand corner, it says that it's 100% pasted. So Snorkl, the writing tool, will actually flag if the student has copied and pasted a large portion of text onto that screen, so that you can have a conversation with that student about where that came from and any support that they might need. That is the writing tool. Again, the Insights tab is also available there. It will also analyze the class as a whole. This is the basics of Snorkl, and we call this Snorkl 101 because we wanted to give a really great overview of the sort of the ins and outs of how to get started with Snorkl, how to try it yourself as a student, how to find things in that library, and how to create your own Snorkl activities. There are a few more advanced features. We actually have a Snorkl 201 call on Thursday, which is a little bit, at least to me, I think it was a little bit of an inside joke, because Snorkl is not that complicated. It's really simple to get started and to use with your student. But we will talk about some of the extra features around how to better customize your activities on Thursday's call. We'll talk a little about Snorkl Coach and how that feature works, and just some other sort of more creative uses of Snorkl. But I'm really excited just to invite you to get in there and get started if you haven't used Snorkl before. Our homepage, again, is snorkl.app. And you can go there, click that sign up button in the top corner, and create a free account, and you can start snorkeling. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Snorkl we take student privacy and safety really seriously. We're iKeepSafe certified. We're also really proud to be Common Sense privacy verified. We're happy to sign a data privacy agreement with your school or your district. We're in districts in every state across the country, and really excited for all that is coming ahead this year in celebrating student thinking, and to be your partners in that. So thanks again for joining. I'll stick around here for just a minute. If there's other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But super excited to have you with us. Super excited for you and your students to start snorkeling. And please don't be a stranger. Feel free to reach out. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'd love to keep snorkeling forward. Thanks so much.